Alright guys, this video is a very quick tutorial on how to do the gauge face install for our new line of STI, WRX, Subaru, any car essentially, gauge faces. So I just wanted to go through the product really quick with you. So here we have two new designs that are actually limited release. This is the HKS Super Oil inspired, and this is the Recaro Confetti Le Mans inspired. These are not overlays, these are actually full replacements. So these replace your stock faces. They're made out of plastic and are printed on. So I'm gonna go through the install really quick with you. So let's go ahead and go to the car and take the cluster out. Alright, so this is the cluster. As you can see here, I've actually installed one of our clusters already before. So what you wanna do first, always, is keep track of where your current positions are. So there's a startup animation. This car's already been kind of warm, but just keep mental note of where your fuel and your temps are. You don't really need to worry about it because this does have a calibration feature. So just keep note. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start taking the cluster out. It's very simple, only 5 screws. You're gonna first drop the center column with the adjustment here. And you're gonna have 2 screws here and here. So just go ahead and get your Phillips head screwdriver. And this is actually easier if you have a stubby screwdriver. And you're gonna pull this bezel off. I have an aftermarket one, so I'm gonna also need to pull the gauges off. So I have my boost gauge here, so I'm gonna unscrew that. And my wideband has enough extra wiring that I can just pull it out. So I'm gonna shake this off. This, get out of the way. And now from here we have access to the 3 screws that pull the cluster out. So 1 on the top, 2 on the sides. I'm gonna go ahead and get those out. Cluster comes out. Cluster has 3 plugs here, center, and the right side. You're gonna look for the bottom. On the bottom of the plug, there's a small clip. Hit the clip. And that's the whole cluster out, just like that. Alright, so now that you have the cluster out, we're gonna start disassembling it. First things first, the shroud comes off. So there's clips here, don't need any tools. You just push like that. And it pops out as one big piece, just like this. This piece should also just come right out. Be careful not to lose these, as these do your mileage and all that stuff. So now you have the needles. So the STI and a couple of other cars have something that we call a stepper motor. And what this means is you have essentially 2 kinds of clusters. One where the needle goes a full 360 degrees, and one where it stops with no visible needle stop. So this is a stepper motor cluster. So you can see I'm trying to get it past this point, but it doesn't go past. Same thing in the other direction. Same's here, it doesn't go past 0. And these things do not go past the C and the E. This actually makes it very easy to realign. But first, we're gonna take the needle out. So what you're gonna do is you wanna make sure that the needle separates from the metal pin, but it does not take the metal pin with it. So how you're gonna do that is you're gonna slowly, basically while grabbing it, you're gonna push this needle past its stepper point, just like that. And you're just gonna slowly yank up while doing that. So I'm slowly yanking up and it's out. Same story with the other ones. I'm gonna twist past the stopper point and slowly yank up. Make sure that you're applying even force directly up. This one, same story. Like that. And this one, like that. So now that your needles are out, you want to get these black holders off. You can either use your nails to try to get it off, like this, just put your fingernail under it, or you can use a screwdriver to just pry it off from the inside. But for me, I use my nails. So now you should notice on the stock cluster, there's gonna be a little bit of adhesive on the back of this face. All you gotta do is pry it off, and it'll be sticky, so be careful. But for me, we just pull it off. You're gonna have this diffusion piece, you're gonna keep this on here, and the face is off. Same thing with these just come off. Just do note though, there are actually diffusion pieces on the stock clusters that you're gonna have to take off the backs, and they're glued on. So make sure that you keep these for later. So remember, the stock faces have these, they're glued onto the back of the sides. Peel them off and keep them on here. So now that this is out, do whatever you need to do to clean the cluster or fix anything else that you might have damaged. I'm gonna go ahead and start putting in the new faces. So for this, I'm gonna put in our Recaro Le Mans face. Just directly on top. These have a little bit of play if you ever want to do align them. Just because there's printers, the printer cannot align exactly correctly, so we add a little bit of play. So you can see you can move it around. And then if you do move it around, make sure you have something to glue it down. Now I'm just gonna put these stoppers back in. So now for the needles. So you remember that the needles stop at 0 for the big ones. So keep in mind you do have a longer and a shorter needle. The longer needle is for the tack, the shorter needle is for the speedo. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna lightly put the correct needles on, very lightly. And then I'm gonna align it to that 0 point. So notice how it is now back to its original setup with the alignment. And if I need to, I can always bend it a little bit to get it there. So make sure it's at 0. And then test the stoppers. Same thing with the fuel. So with the fuel, the bottom point is halfway between the E. So I'm gonna do that. And for the temp, it's halfway through the C. So I'm gonna do that. And if I have to, I can always go the other way around to realign. Okay, so these are good. So we're gonna put this back in the car and verify that everything is aligned correctly. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. So now that we have the needles slightly in, but not in all the way, I'm gonna put the shroud back just to show you guys. But we're gonna actually make sure that everything's aligned before we put everything back together. So I'm gonna go ahead, put the cluster in, plug it in. I'm gonna put it in the approximate correct direction of where it's supposed to sit. And then I'm gonna grab my key and make sure it sweeps correctly. So this generally looks correct as far as where the needles sit and the sweep is. My gas needs to be moved up a little bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna try again real quick. All right, that looks more correct. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to turn the cluster off, and then I'm gonna very carefully push these needles in. Make sure that the needles don't drift past just like this one did. So if it did, no worries, we can just bend it again like normal. Like that. Same thing with this one, push it in. And if it bends over, no worries. Just carefully put it back in the spot. Test it one last time. All right, that looks good. So now I'm going to do a quick check, make sure all the functions I can test are working. So all that works. Cruise control works. DCCD works. So we're good there. So now I'm going to turn off the cluster, unplug it. Cluster comes out. Now this is normally where you would clean it off, wipe it down. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and put the shield back on. Alright, make sure it's all wiped down. Now I'm going to actually properly put it in. Screws go back in. And now the shroud goes in. I'm just going to test this one more time. Looks pretty good. And the dimming works good. So yeah, that's it. Tune in next time.